All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. My name is Justin Coffin. Today is Thursday, January 7th, 2021. This is our 35th podcast already. We are broadcasting live from downtown Youngstown, Ohio, and we are produced by Joe Danier's Youngstown Studio Network. On today's show, we're going to break down the Browns-Steelers matchup on Sunday. That's a night game on NBC. We have myself, Greg Kirchner, breaking down the Browns, and I brought in two Pittsburgh Steeler fans, Dave Spires, who's been on the show before. He's a Mount Union basketball coach, and Charlie Jennings. He lives in Western Pennsylvania, so he's going to break. Those two are going to break down the Steelers side of things for us. We also will have our weekend picks for all 6 NFL games. In the second half of the show, we're going to be breaking down the matchup between the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide and the number 3 Ohio State University Buckeyes. So that's going to, be the main focus on our show today. As always, we, appreciate your continued support of our studio. You can always find all of our previous episodes on the Youngstown Studio Facebook page, or you can search for the 330 Sports Show on Facebook or YouTube as well. Again, this show does stream live on Facebook and YouTube, and then usually the next morning it's uploaded to all the streaming podcast services, so Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, all that stuff. And if you can, it'd be a big favor to us, not just this show, but Youngstown Studio. If you could give a like and subscribe to those channels, Youngstown Studio, as well as the 330 Sports Show, that would be great, because we have a lot of great content planned for the near future. So we're going to go into the Zoom call here in a minute, but before we do that, this just came across, there was some breaking news that the Cleveland Indians and New York Mets have agreed to a trade. Obviously, the main piece of that trade, I think we all saw this coming, was Francisco Lindor, and also Carlos Carrasco will be heading to the New York Mets. I don't. I think we all knew it was coming. It's sad that this is unfortunately how baseball is run. When a player gets to, one of the prime years of his career, that last year or two before they hit free agency, teams like the Indians and probably about 20 other Major League Baseball teams have to sort of unload them because they're not going to be able to afford their huge contract that's coming up. So if I get more details at the end of the show, we'll talk about that. If not, we'll wait till next week and get more into that. But we're going to go into the first Zoom call we have planned. This is the Browns Steelers breakdown. So take a look at this and some good information here.
All right. We are recording this Wednesday night. And this is going to be for Thursday's show. So any lines we give you are going to be obviously Wednesday night. And I just took them right off the Score app tonight. So with us tonight, we got Dave Spires, been on the show before. Dave, you guys back with basketball yet at Mount Union?
We're on week number 2.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. And Dave obviously works for Pfizer too. So hats off to him and his company for getting that stuff done.
We're on week number 3.
Very good. We also have Greg Kirchner on. He's joined us a bunch of times on the show with Zoom calls, and he was kind of our resident expert on the Masters. So Greg, welcome. And we have a rookie to the show. We got Charlie Jennings. Charlie graduated from Pitt and obviously a Steeler fan. Lives in Charlie, you're in Western Pennsylvania?
Correct. Elwood City, Pennsylvania.
Right,
just across the border.
All right. So we got for our Browns Steelers kind of breakdown here, we got Dave and Charlie with the Browns, or I'm sorry, with the Steelers side, and Greg and I are going to handle the Browns stuff. So we're kind of just going to give our thoughts on the games, and then we'll pick some of the playoff games at the end. So we kind of got a little bit of a preview this past Sunday, but the Steelers kind of were playing their JV team, and the Browns obviously had some guys out. but needed to win that game. Browns, just prevailed 24-22. Obviously, this is a huge win for the Browns to get into the playoffs, 11-5, first time in 18 years. If you remember way back when, that game I think was early 2003. Ohio State just won the national title, so a lot of things kind of align there. And the Steelers and Browns really had a great playoff game. Browns took like a 24-7 lead, and the Steelers, I think they scored like 15 or 16 points in the final 2 or 3 minutes to end up winning that game 36-33. I guess, Dave, we'll start with you, being a Steelers fan, and then you and Charlie kind of go back and forth, but give us kind of your thoughts on, I guess, the season and what your thoughts are on the game this weekend.
I think on the season, I was ecstatic. I mean, if anyone would have told us that, we would start out the season 11-0, I'd have said you're crazy.
Right.
And for us to finish 12-4, I'll take that any time out the year. I don't care if we stagger to the finish or not. Sure. But I think they definitely overachieved, and I believe the defense carried us the beginning portion of the year. And once we got some injuries on the defensive side of the ball, I think that's when you saw us start to struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
But 12-4, I'll take that every single year. That usually is a good recipe for a nice little playoff run.
Okay. Charlie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you saw, the way the Steelers started the year. I think you saw that building, at the end of last year, where their defense was so good and they just were held back by their quarterback play. So I think all of us thought going into the season, gosh, if Ben can just be average, kind of game manage, we have something here. And, as it started out, you could easily get really excited because the defense, when they were healthy, was great. We had a little bit of a running game. The weather was good. So things just looked, straight upward trajectory. Like Dave said, we did battle some injuries and some COVID stuff, but and every team has that lull in a season. But I think they showed me a little something against the Colts. And then even last week playing really with some of those guys, I wasn't even sure who they were. And
right.
They executed, and they were into the game. So I feel good about this weekend from an experience standpoint. We've been here before, but I think the game is kind of a toss-up. I mean, to be honest, I'd be curious to Dave's standpoint, but from my side, I see the Browns finally having a competent front office and coach, and the rivalry is going to be fun over the next couple of years. It's fun because of the proximity, and the cities are so similar, and the fans know each other, and it'll only get better as the Browns get relevant, because lately it's been kind of a Ohio State, Michigan type thing where big brother, little brother. So I think it's going to be fun going forward, but I'm excited about the game. I guess if I could use one phrase, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. I like Big Ben, versus Baker, to control the game, but the Browns have a model that they can keep them in the game, and they can win. They absolutely can win.
Greg, why don't you, from a Browns standpoint, take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, certainly there's some tough news this week with Stefanski being out and Bitonio being out on the line. I mean, those are big losses. It's been a weird year, though. We're kind of numb to that to an extent. It's more, I guess it's more, you're more sad for those guys right now than, I do think it's going to impact the game, but, this is a team, and, and no team makes excuses. There's no excuses to be made. We're going to go out and play a great game and play hard. And I think, Alex Van Pelt calling the plays will be different. I don't know that that's going to make a massive bit of difference. I think just looking back at the season, obviously, I mean, to take what Dave said, I mean, if a Steeler fan would take 12-4, then a Browns fan would take 11-5 a million times, it's great to it would have really stung not, and I don't want, this is not a concession speech or anything, but it would have really sucked not to get there. But the fact that we're there now, it feels like a win already. You want to go out and play well. You want to go out and win some playoff games, but we've taken a good step in the right direction. So I look forward to the game. I think you're gonna see a little bit of a Cleveland against the world mentality. I mean, it's just a lot of things have stacked up against the team. They're gonna come out, play hard. I think you saw a little bit of a vanilla game plan last week, possibly knowing that I don't know that I agree with it, but possibly knowing that we'd have another game this week, but we almost messed around and lost the game because one thing I'll say about the Steelers is you're always going to get a game from them no matter what, no matter who they put out there, and that really comes from their head coach and their staff and their sort of way of doing things that their identity that they've had for the last 40 years, right. So 50 years. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not cautiously optimistic necessarily. I think it's going to be a struggle to win, but it'll be fun.
Yeah. And I guess I'll just finish out, my thoughts on this season. A lot of what you guys said, from both teams. The Browns, like Greg said, being 11-5, first winning season, in 13 years, first time in the playoffs in 18 years. And usually by this time we're head coach shopping. We're planning on who we're going to take, first or second in the draft. Ironically, we won't have our head coach for this game. So the special teams coordinator is going to jump in and be the acting head coach for the game. And a Pitt guy, Alex Van Pelt, is going to be calling the plays for the offense. But like Greg said, every team, and Charlie said this earlier, every team's had to deal with the COVID stuff this year. I feel like the Browns, the last, it's kind of hit them a little bit later in the season, unfortunately, for playoff time. They really, they showed that offense did not look good against the Jets without those wide receivers. Baker struggled, and in the running game, they could load up the box. So when the Browns become a one-dimensional team, they're not very good. But hopefully with like Greg said, that vanilla game plan that they put together last week, hopefully they saved a few things for this week and can get after it. Obviously a huge rivalry game, and so much at stake. But I feel a little bit on the side of we're kind of playing with house money, not much to lose. This, Dave, I see Dave smirking up there. Like I feel like some Steeler fans are expecting to just, probably win this game by at least 2 touchdowns. And again, that probably wouldn't surprise me. I'm just hoping for a competitive game and to be in it going into the fourth quarter. That's kind of what I'm looking at. So I guess what do you guys think from like a game plan or position groups? What do you guys thinking like some keys to this game are?
I think that when you look at from top to bottom, from coaching on down to the special teams, the only arrow where you guys are pointing up at will be the running game.
Yeah.
Obviously with your Thunder and Lightning you have back there and our plundering running backs right now, you guys definitely have the advantage. But the keys to the game for us are obviously, I think, from a defensive standpoint, we got to control the game. We got to control the line of scrimmage, and I think we'll do that with Tuitt, Hayward, and Watt and Highsmith. I think those guys can control the game. So the little bit of running room you guys had last week, I don't think that will be there this week. We get Spillane back as a linebacker. I think he has the quickness to actually clog up the middle a little bit as well. So your running game, I think, is going to get shut down. So that means the ball's got to go into Baker Mayfield's hands, which we would love to see happen. I don't think he can. I personally just don't think he can win a ball game. In the NFL, I think I told you this earlier in the year. NFL, nothing's given, everything's earned, and there's a process that comes about winning a playoff game, and just getting there is different.
Right.
Winning a game is different, and not that the Steelers are that experienced. But I think their experience in the right places, meaning head coach, meaning quarterback, and meaning on the offensive and defensive line.
Sure.
And I think that is what's going to make the difference in the ball game.
Charlie?
I agree. I think the Steelers by system, stop the run well and play action well, which are the Browns' strengths. So I think we have that advantage. I don't think it'll be quite as dominant as it was early in the season, but I do think we'll stop the run. I think they'll collapse the pocket and cause a little bit of chaos for Baker, and I do think the Browns are going to sink or swim, whether Baker can stay calm, keep his eyes downfield, and throw on the run. From what I've seen, he's been doing a little bit better job recently, but he, when under duress, he does get a little bit of, jumpy, a little bit of happy feet. And that just sort of turns the Steelers into a feeding frenzy. So I think, like Dave said, they don't do, the Steelers typically don't put in a lot of wrinkles or, change up. They run what they run. And I think they're gonna make him at least, back them off from stuffing the run, and they're gonna put pressure on him.
If we don't turn the ball over, that means Ben trying to force the game, trying to, make his last hurrah. If he doesn't do that, it just does what he does, the things that he does well. I just don't think Browns can keep up. I just don't. But if he starts forcing the ball and trying to be a hero, it's going to be a ball game.
That's what I was going to say to go off your comment. If the Browns can force turnovers, I think the Browns almost have to force turnovers.
Correct.
I think they have to be probably a +2 in the turnover differential to win this game, and you got to make plays. And I guess to go back to my point, we're playing a little bit with house money, so maybe you can gamble a little bit, maybe you can be a little bit more aggressive than usual, but yeah, that'll remain to be seen. Greg,
do we know if is Denzel Ward tracking to be back? I think that's kind of an unknown, right?
I think as of yesterday, that was an unknown. I have not heard an update today.
Yeah, because I would say, looking at this game from the Browns standpoint, that what makes me the most nervous is the Steelers' passing game against our defensive backs. You saw it last week. Mason Rudolph played a pretty good game, but ultimately he played his best when he realized that really just kind of throw the ball up to Claypool and Johnson and Juju over the middle was a recipe for success. Obviously the Browns struggle in the secondary. I think we were starting a guy last week who had played 6 defensive plays all year. So need to have Denzel back. Go ahead.
I thought last week the Steelers almost played it too conservatively, too long for a game where they could have tried some things. So it made me wonder if, they were just trying to get out of there healthy. But I agree with you, Greg, although I'm not ready to write Ben Roethlisberger in the deep passing game as fully back. I know this, at halftime of the Colts game, I wanted Ben to retire. I wanted him to get dressed and head home and start fresh. And the second half, he was a completely different person. So it gives me some hope, and I hope they realize that they need to, challenge down the field, because even if you don't complete it, you can get pass interference, or you can get things can happen. So
if you see Finter call 2 bubble screens in the first series, you guys got a legitimate shot. If they start throwing slants like Mason Rudolph did, or throw a couple of deep balls, or if they're not predictable like they have been in the past, which I don't think they're predictable last week against the Browns. I thought they did some different things. If we're not predictable and we're not doing those stupid bubble screens, it's going to be we're going to jump out early. If not, it's going to be a dogfight.
Do you think?
What's that?
I was going to ask Greg and Justin, do you think that the Browns will come out sort of cautiously and try to ease into the game and kind of a feeling out process? Or do you think they will be aggressive out of the gate, potentially risking, if you look at how the first meeting, that game was over within the first 5 minutes because of Baker's mistake. I think the Steelers are going to be aggressive out of the gate offensively and I think the longer the game goes close, the pressure shifts, to the Steelers, who have been there before and done this and are expected to win. And like you guys said, playing with house money. So I think the Steelers are going to have a couple of wrinkles on offense, and I think they're going to come out, going for a knockout punch in the first quarter, maybe even the first or second drive. I think they're going to try to jump up and then force the Browns to abandon the running game.
Greg,
And I think, and I kind of think the Browns will come out aggressive too. For number one, I think they need to, but number two, thinking about the dynamic of how much can Stefanski really do for this game, and when some of the things you're reading, well, he can certainly script out the first 10, 15 plays, so that'll be an opportunity for him to put his wrinkle on that play, and I would expect there to be a couple gadget plays in there. And again, if you're going to have the house money mentality, nothing to lose mentality, then you should come out and throw the kitchen sink out. And I think I hope, maybe it's more of a hope than a think, but I think we'll do it. But it's gonna be tough. I think, Justin, you hit it on the head. We have to win the turnover battle, and we have to win it we have to get some big turnovers. And we haven't done the greatest job this year of necessarily creating turnovers. So we may need a little help from Ben or somebody putting the ball on the ground. And Olivier Vernon, we didn't talk about Olivier Vernon.
That's huge.
Huge. He's been our best. He's really been.
Yes.
Garrett has struggled. I know that COVID knocked him on his ass, and he's been struggling. And he's been out a lot, and we haven't heard his name a lot, but Vernon's been our best pass rusher for the past 4 weeks, really. And that's unfortunate for him and unfortunate for the team. But I know Ben likes to get rid of the ball quick now. It's a different Ben than the old Ben.
But not having Olivier Vernon is huge. That dude was eating people.
I agree. And that allows the Steelers to possibly double team Garrett, or Garrett, like Greg said, seems to be affected from COVID last month. Where you see him even sitting out like key plays on the sideline. A second down and 8, and it's like, where's our best player on the team? So yeah, I think that's a very underrated loss, and it's kind of flying under the radar. So somebody's got to step up. Just the Browns have had that next man up mentality, as have the Steelers. They lost Bush, and they lost who'd they just lose? They lost Bush.
Who's the other? Dupree.
Yeah, they lost
Dupree and Marcus Allen. Don't forget Marcus Allen. The standard. It's the standard, Justin. That's next in line, baby. Next in line.
Yeah. Well, and at this point though, too, it's like you got here. Are you satisfied with just being here, or do you want to go out and win the game? And you just got to have that mentality. And I like what I like what all three of you guys said. I think both teams are going to be aggressive from the jump, and we'll see how I think it's just a matter of who converts third downs, who I trust the Steelers field goal kicker more than I trust Cody Parkey. I think
Hey, regardless, it's going to be fun in Youngstown, Ohio.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
It's going to be fun. I just wish the game wasn't at 8:15 on a Sunday night.
Yeah. I think the NFL did that because they're expecting it to be a close game. Especially if both teams were at 100%, this game would probably be just a fantastic matchup, and it still has the opportunity to be, but we'll see how that goes. All right, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just jump right in here to what you guys think? Give me your score. Give me obviously by the score we'll know if if that team covered the spread or whatever. So the Steelers right now are a 6-point favorite. I believe that line opened at 3 or 3.5.
I think it opened at 4, and it was bet down at 1 point to 3.5, and then when the Browns had their unfortunate news on COVID, it jumped, and I think it was as high as 6 or 6.5. So I'm not sure what it is currently, but
the current line as of about 6 o'clock last one I checked it was at 6. And the total is 47, so not expected to be a high scoring game. Well, let's start with you. Give me your score, and give me what do you think?
30-13 Steelers.
All right.
So let me reintroduce you guys to TJ Watt, the defensive player of the year.
All right. Yeah, Dave let me know that because I had said Aaron Donald I think should be the player of the year. with TJ Watt second. Dave let me know that early on Monday. All right, so Dave's going 30-13 Pittsburgh. So that is what the under, and the Steelers covering. I'll tell you, Greg, we'll go with you next.
Yeah, boy, I hate to do this, but we gotta. I obviously will be rooting like hell for the Browns, but I'm going to say 31-20 Steelers. I think the Browns will battle, and we'll get 20 because I'm banking on Parkey missing an extra point. So, but I think it'll be sort of a pull away late thing. But obviously, I hope I'm wrong, and maybe I can do a little reverse jinx here. But 31-20 Steelers.
All right, Charlie.
I think a little closer than that. I think 27-17.
Okay.
Close. I think it's going to be close into late third quarter, fourth quarter, and that the Steelers pull away. I expect the Browns to play well. I think the difference will be just the experience of Ben versus maybe Baker. I don't expect Baker though. I don't think he's going to make any big mistakes. I just think he might be a little bit more cautious with some of his throws, and I think you'll see him maybe tucking some balls and running where he normally might try to fit it into a tight window or coverage, because I think he struggled in the past against the Steelers zone looks. But I say 27-17, which is a Steelers cover, and I think the most dominant player in the game is going to be Cam Hayward. I think TJ Watt will probably win Defensive Player of the Year, maybe second, but Cam Hayward does a lot of stuff, plugging up the middle and forcing double teams and even beating double teams that you just don't appreciate unless you're actually watching it. He may not fill up the stat sheet, but that guy is he's unbelievable, and he's had a really good year, and he plays every down, and he's rested. So I look for him to have a very big game, especially with Joel Bitonio out. So I think he's going to make a difference.
Okay. All right.
Hate when Buckeyes go to the Steelers.
It's
and the Ravens.
yeah. That's always been a tough pill to swallow when a guy like Santonio Holmes gets drafted by the Steelers and wins Super Bowl MVP, and Cam Hayward, and there's been several others. So, all right, my pick too. I'm picking the Browns to cover. I'm going to pick the Steelers to win. 27-24. I do think the Browns will make this a tight game, but I think the Steelers just have too much experience, like Dave said, at the quarterback position. I think Mike Tomlin's probably a Hall of Fame head coach as well. So they have. I think the Browns are building towards where they, towards the Steelers and where they want to be. And just like Greg said, I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong and have nothing else but the Browns win this game. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good game, but I think the Steelers pull it out. So we shall see, and maybe we'll revisit this next week. And Dave get slap that smirk off of Dave's face. But hey, you guys have earned that. The Browns have not won a game in Pittsburgh since 2003. So it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming,
but that game was a Sunday night game though. So
okay.
Whatever that's worth.
I believe that was probably a Tim Couch.
It was a Tim Couch game, yeah.
So all right. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate it. Dave and Greg are going to come back with me on a Buckeye call. We're going to boot Charlie, the pit guy, out for the Buckeye conversation. But Charlie, thanks for jumping on, and appreciate your knowledge. And Charlie, I will say this, Charlie, we're in a group text a lot during the games. Charlie's a very usually balanced Steeler fan, where I'd like to think that about the Browns with me, but you see things as they, not through necessarily rose-colored glasses. You kind of tell it like it is. So.
Well, I pay attention, and I watch the Browns too. Like I said, I have so many coworkers and friends, and even family. My wife is from northwestern Pennsylvania, and she, they get the Youngstown station, so they get the Browns, and they, through their family business, have Browns season tickets. So I usually go to one or two Browns games a year. So I root for them when they're not playing the Steelers, and like I said, I think it's fun. I think it's fun that they're back, and that people who have a rapport, can have this type of banter. So thanks for having me, Justin. And I look forward to a good game this weekend and, talking about it after the completion.
Hey, and can you share, I don't know if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but can you share who one of your coworkers is? He has a son that plays for the Browns.
Oh, yeah. One of my coworkers and friends is John Carlson. So his son, Steven, I think he's the 4th tight end on the roster, primarily a blocker. He plays on the kick coverage units, and he got a few snaps last weekend with Bryant out, and he ran a couple routes, and obviously everybody's name is going to pop because he's the guy that had the ball pinned between his legs on the onside kick. And unfortunately, we haven't been going in the office. We've been virtual, but I usually always go see his dad and talk about, the game on Monday. So
hopefully
another close tie that I have with the Browns.
Hopefully you and him have something. He'll be the more positive one heading into your next Zoom meeting at work. So again, thanks, Charlie, Dave, and Greg. We'll be back.
Hey, Justin, real quick.
Yeah. I love it. Hey, like you guys said, last thought, let's just hope this is a rivalry, like a legit rivalry. At least that's what Greg and I are hoping. I've been on the good side of the coin with Ohio State, and we've been the Michigan of this relationship for the last 20 years. So hopefully we can flip that.
Yeah, really the whole AFC North has a chance to be a kind of a fun thing for at least the next five or so years if the Bengals can get it together with Burrow, and obviously the Ravens aren't going anywhere. So
unfortunately.
All right, gentlemen. So I'll be right back with the Buckeye roundtable talk, and Charlie, again, thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
See you, Charlie.
Hey, guys.
See you, Charlie.
Okay, we're back. Thanks to those those 3 guys on that last Zoom call. Greg and Dave are going to join us on the next Zoom call here in a minute. So thanks to Charlie again for joining us, giving us some Steelers perspective. Just real quick here, in between, I did get the names the Indians are going to be acquiring in the trade. Again, I don't know much about these guys yet, so I'll look more into that over the weekend and update it for our next show. But again, Francisco Lindor, obviously shortstop, and Carlos Carrasco, one of our starting pitchers, is going to be traded to the New York Mets, and this deal has been agreed upon. And in return, the Indians are going to, as of now, be getting 4 players. Infielder Andreas Jimenez, Ahmad Rosario. I believe they're both shortstops. So hopefully, I believe Jimenez or Jimenez, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, will probably jump into Lindor's spot. Rosario, I believe, is another one of their better prospects. Isaiah Green is an outfielder, and then Josh Wolf is a pitcher. And I just want to make one point about this trade real quick, is that, right now we don't know exactly, what we're getting in return. Like these trades, everyone wants to like slap a grade on it or evaluate it right now. For the Indians, this is a trade that basically their hands were tied. They had to do, and I don't necessarily fault the organization. This is more of a Major League Baseball, problem where, teams like the Indians, the Pirates, the Royals, you can go down the line and name pretty much everybody outside of New York, LA, Chicago, Boston that have the same issue, where the Indians, you have to capitalize. You have a very short time to capitalize when you have superstars on your team before they, reach that max contract point. And for the Indians, this was just the nature of doing business in the current system of Major League Baseball. So again, we'll talk more about this trade. Hopefully in the long run, this benefits the Indians, that will remain to be seen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition and talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Clemson game that just took place. We're going to preview the upcoming Alabama game, and just a few other little things in there. So I'm gonna throw it over to that Zoom call right now and take a listen.
All right, we are back for our second segment today. This is going to be pretty much primarily all Ohio State Buckeye talk. So we're bringing back Greg and Dave for this second segment. We're also bringing in Brett Franklin, who's got his buddy Trey Sermon behind him, and Bill De Niro. Bill did our Buckeye pregame or preseason prediction, and a lot of that stuff has rang true that we talked about. So
Yeah.
All good stuff. So I'll tell you what, Greg, you be the leadoff hitter. Tell us, obviously, Ohio State coming off an absolutely huge program victory, monumental victory against Clemson. Just, I guess, tell me what you think about that, the season, the next game, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, boy. I mean, obviously it was a classic game. I actually watched they had the 1 hour speed replay of that game on Big Ten Network yesterday. I watched it and it literally makes your head spin, but just all the different all the big plays in that game. That was satisfying on so many levels. It was great to beat Clemson, shut Dabo up. And this team really, this has the feeling of the 14 national title team. I mean, it really does. The momentum, the way the offense is clicking right now. Again, Bama is Bama. I don't see Bama as this unstoppable juggernaut that is so much better than Clemson. I mean, I think they're fairly comparable to Clemson, fairly comparable to us. I think it's going to be a great football game. We can play with anybody right now. I really have that confidence. We can score on anybody. They're going to score on us, just like Clemson scored on us. It's going to be a very similar game, I imagine. And it's just going to come down to, like it always does, comes down to big plays, turnovers, and momentum as the game goes on. But I mean, we just got off the Browns-Steelers pod. I feel significantly better about the Buckeyes' chances over Bama than I do about the Browns over the Steelers. But I'm just excited, and I hope we can field, I hope we don't have significant guys out. I know in college it's a little tough. They don't have the same reporting requirements with things publicly. So sometimes you don't know till the end. But I want to see both sides as full as 100% as possible and just play it out. It'd be great. I think it's going to be awesome.
And we'll go over now to Dave. Dave, who has made the hat switch from one pod to the other. And Dave, I got one question for you too. What are you drinking?
Bakers.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Just going blue blood there.
Exactly. Keeping it semi-local, I guess.
All right. Very good. All right. So what do you think about, in all the season, the last game, what's coming up?
It was definitely a tough season. Ohio State had his issues, but I think it all came together when it mattered the most against Clemson. What Dabo Swinney doesn't realize what he did was, it wasn't the fact that he said what he said, but when you put Baltimore material out there like that soon, what it does for a team is it makes them laser focused for that game. So when you have a big game like Clemson coming up, you're focused. But when somebody says something that pisses you off, that 90% focus now goes to 110% focus. So you're listening to every single detail that the coaching staff puts in front of you. And I think that was obviously the spark that lit the Ohio State Buckeyes. I thought, offensively, they were hitting on all cylinders, and Justin Fields showed tremendous toughness in that game, and he actually proved why he's going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL. I think the offensive line and defensive line did a heck of a job in controlling the line of scrimmage. Now, coming up against Bama, I think that's just a different beast in itself going forward. You've got, NFL caliber players going to NFL caliber players on probably. You'll have similar to what when Ohio State played Miami. You're gonna have that many NFL type players on the game. This game is going to go down as one of the greatest games I think in college football history. I think that's what we're gonna see come Monday night, and it's gonna be a battle of the heavyweights. And hopefully, I can stay up to watch it because I'll be up late the night before. But I just think that it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a shootout, and I think whoever has the ball last is going to win.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. All right. Let's Franklin, your maiden voyage on our podcast, on our show. So you've been a kind of a blogger with 11 Warriors.
Yeah.
Unky Buck on there. So
yeah.
Give us your thoughts. You have a lot of Ohio State knowledge. Tell us what you think.
To feed off a little bit of what Dave said, the caliber, and I think that's something that's been kind of like downplayed, and especially when you kind of see things after the game with the Clemson fans and stuff like that, how they're miserable, and they're trying to downplay how good this Ohio State team really is. Ohio State's, in terms of blue chip players, is almost equal to Alabama's. Mm-hmm. And to expect to not have them be able to play up to that level with the coaching that the team has is it's almost ridiculous in a way to kind of like fathom why you can think that. It like logically just doesn't make sense. But when you get to like what happened with Clemson in the game, like it showed exactly what they're capable of doing on a weekly basis. And I think, even though they kind of said it ad nauseum over the broadcast and how, the 6 games is a detriment, stuff like that, it's true. Mm-hmm. It didn't allow any cohesion. It didn't allow anything to happen. Then you had not only the cohesion, you had multiple players missing multiple games. We missed Olave for a bit. We had a month span where we played 2 games, I think, or maybe like a 6-week period where we played 6 games. So it was things weren't working out well, and the team just never got it together. Sure. But they found it on the biggest night, and so it was a lot of fun to watch. And now going up against Bama, who they've got it's just like we look at Ohio State. Bama's got the same thing. It's right. Player after player. It's not it's not a rebuild. It's always a reload. And we're going to see a lot of problems, I think, with their passing game. Now, I don't foresee too many issues with Mac. Is it Brown? Mac Brown? Why am I drawing
Mac
Brown?
Jones.
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. Yeah.
I apologize. I'm not an aficionado of Alabama, but I've seen some photos of him lately. He's got like a little gut hanging out, smoking a cigar. It's like, well, at least we don't need a spy on this game like we needed to have for Trevor Lawrence, so we can allow our linebackers to play a little bit more freely. So it's going to be a little bit that different dynamic defensively. I'm really waiting to see kind of what happens with the COVID stuff, though, and how they're going to how it's going to impact their team. If rumors are true, we could be down some defensive linemen, specifically our tackles. And if we're missing Togiai, that's a problem. So, and I know in our chats during the game, that was one of my big things right off the bat, how well that defensive line's playing. If they're playing that way again,
right,
we're going to be in pretty good shape.
And to jump on your Mac Jones point, I think he looks like a young Dabo Swinney. Last night on the Heisman thing with Devontae Smith, with him winning, he seemed like a good guy, but then I just go back to the fact he kind of looks like a young Dabo. So you just kind of want that. You want to beat up on him twice in a row.
I'm all for it.
So, Bill, I'm going to bring you on next. First of all, congratulations. Bill just graduated from the Ohio State University.
Thank you.
Congratulations to you. And so why don't you tell us, you're down there in Columbus. Tell us what you're hearing, what you think.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool to see that game on Friday kind of come full circle for Ohio State and Ryan Day. I mean, it kind of feels like a 2-year process in the making. Kind of saw like all the hype come in, like, oh, we got Justin Fields, we got all these recruits, and we finally all saw it come together, which is really cool to see. Now we have to get these guys up to go play for a national championship, which, I mean, they shouldn't have any problem doing that. But like you said, if we're down some guys from COVID, then we could be in trouble, but I think it will be one of the best games of college football. At least it should be. People deserve to see one of the greatest games of all time during this year, especially. Like, if we don't get to see the best 2 teams play after this, then like, why bother?
Right. Yeah. And, you hear those rumors and like, I can't remember which one of you guys said it, but college is a little bit, they toe that line with HIPAA, with the student athlete and with all that stuff. And, player safety comes first, but they don't have to release a report like the NFL does. And then you get some maybe like nefarious characters that might try to get some, backdoor information to help a bet or something. I'm not saying any of you are those guys, but there are some people that, that want that inside information, for early betting. So the line, I believe right now is Alabama's favored by 8, if I saw that correctly, most recently. So I like that line, being an Ohio State fan. I think Ohio State in the last, in the Urban and now Ryan Day era are 8-1 as straight up underdogs. So I like our chances going into this game. We're going to face one of the most formidable offenses we've seen, in decades. You could put them up there with just about any team in Alabama, but I think Ohio State is more of a complete team. I could be wrong on that, but if you look at the individual skill position groups, Ohio State might have an advantage in more if you just say, okay, well, I think our linebackers are superior to Bama's. Alabama might have the better wide receivers, but we might have the better quarterback and, things like that. So I think when it all comes down, it's just going to be guys making plays. It's going to be guys making plays, and Alabama's going to be favored, but we have, we got our backs against the wall. And I think it was a Buckeye fan. It's kind of nice because we're normally like, you should win this game by 14 to, even up to maybe 40 points, depending on who your opponent is in the Big Ten. But now you get on that national stage, and it's kind of nice to be the underdog. It kind of is refreshing. And I don't know how you guys dealt with it, but on New Year's Day or New Year's night, that was one of the most fun games I have ever watched. Just like Bill said, what happened last year, coming full circle. The devastation you felt, and those players, you could see it in Olave and Fields and in a lot of, even like a Chase Young. We had the better team going off that field, I think, last year, and those guys knew it. And we lost a lot of guys, but we brought a lot of them back, and so it was nice. It was nice to jump that Clemson hurdle. Now again,
they answered the call. They answered.
It was nice. Yeah, it was nice to do the proverbial Karate Kid and put him in a body bag this time.
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was interesting. At first, I was beyond nervous at first, especially going 3 and out to start.
Sure.
It's like, great, here we go again, and then it just unraveled from there. And at that point, it was just like, it didn't matter what happened. It was just like, there's probably 2 middle fingers aimed at my TV when Dabo popped on at least a dozen times.
Him and I think Charlie on our previous who did our Brown Steelers texted and said he kind of looks like Skeletor. I'm not too familiar with him, but he has that look to him. I've just never been I'm sorry, Brent Venables.
Brent Venables, yes.
Yeah, Brent Venables is terrifying.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, that guy gets more airtime than any other guy in the country. So
and more credit seemingly. I mean, and he got exposed. They didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't know where to line up half the time in this game. It was it was unusual. And then when their middle linebacker got ejected, they really didn't know what to do. So,
yeah, I mean, we've heard the rumors before. I think even Day said it outright about sign stealing, things like that, and they made a very conscious effort to try and divert that.
Yeah.
And
they
keep them
huddled
away
more.
from.
Yeah.
And when you look at the score, and that's not something a Brett Venables defense typically gives up. So what did they find out? And I did see someone kind of compare it to the Charlie Weiss about how he was involved with the Patriots sign stealing and stuff like that, and all of a sudden once people found out about him, he became such a not good coach.
Right.
And so, like, is this going to expose Venables or not? Well, obviously remains to be seen, but it could be the start.
Plus, let's not forget one of the biggest differences in the game besides Fields being able to stay in the game was, my man, can I get an amen in the middle of my sermon? That young man, that reverend, that deacon, he ran, and he ran. They could not stop it. He ran like a man possessed.
Yeah.
If he can duplicate that Monday night, if he can win the individual battle between Najee Harris, it's going to be a very interesting ball game.
Yeah, and I think what allows, obviously much of that to happen is our offensive line, which I do think is the best in the country. I think that offensive line is really the deepest. It even shows you they put a true freshman in Paris Johnson at guard. He's a tackle. They put him in at guard, and he pancaked somebody on his first timeout. And it shows you how deep they are at the line. They've got a lot of great players there, and if they can have that push like they had, Sermon has all the ability just to pile it on. Yeah.
Yeah, but on top of that, though, there were a couple plays, especially in the game, where there was one specific play. It was the 3rd and 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
Handed it off to him. He got hit 4 or 5 yards before the first, spun off of it, fell forward, first down. I mean, it's almost impossible not to watch him right now and think of Zeke.
Got
a similar running style. He's a little bit taller. He's not your 5 foot, 130 pound running back like the.
See, I don't even see Zeke. I see, and no disrespect, and I'm not bringing him down to that level, but he runs like Adrian Peterson. He runs angry. He runs. I mean, the man runs angry. Zeke wasn't running angry. Like Zeke was just running. This dude runs angry, and he wants to get hit. He wants to absorb it, and he wants to get you out the way. He runs angry.
Speaking of running backs, though, that Mayan Williams, I guess they call him Meatball. He's called Meatball. He's called Meatball, and that little dude just twice stopped on a dime and changed positions immediately. I was blown away by that. That's the biggest game of his life to that point, and he
3-star,
no fear whatsoever.
recruit.
Yes,
wow.
No fear whatsoever.
Can I just say he was running as if he had 2 top 100 running backs coming in this month to Ohio.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Well, he ran exactly like a guy that you're saying, look, you're going to get 2 carries in this game. That's it. You're going to get.
He made most of it, though. That's all that matters.
More of it. I want to see. He reminds me of Bettis, but he's bigger than Bettis.
Right.
I mean, I want to see the big man move.
Hell yeah.
He must be jelly because Jam don't shake like that.
You know what's funny though is that we've been talking about the game and all this. We haven't even discussed those tight ends, how they play.
Yeah,
they were to begin the game. They were the biggest factor in getting that thing rolling.
100%.
No doubt. Let me bring up one point with your boy Trey Sermon too. I think it got to 35-21. It was in the 3rd quarter. Clemson had momentum. It was 3rd and 10. And I'm specifically talking about that look he's got on his face right now. Because Fields hit him with a little pass. It was actually behind the line of scrimmage. So if he does not get that first down, we're punting to Clemson, and we're only up 14. They get the ball back probably in, right around the 50. he made that play and he got 12 yards. Yeah, ran down for the 91-yard thing or whatever. Gave that meme that will be forever etched in
Ohio State history.
Right.
By the way, that guy with what he's done in the last 2, even the last 3 games, should never have to buy a drink in Columbus or a meal in Columbus again.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
He's going to end up in the NFL.
Yeah, his draft stock's through the roof now.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, this all started with him in that Michigan State game. It kind of goes unnoticed because of, they kind of piled it on with Michigan State, but that's when he started finally running well.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad that it's COVID right now, because if I go into a Ohio State bar and I see him dancing to Mr. Big, it's over. I'm done with him.
That's just your boy JJ. So obviously, Ohio State, Justin Fields, I think other quarterbacks have had 6 touchdowns in a game, but none of this level. I think Kenny Guyton might have done it against maybe even Cal or another school.
I think it was Cal.
There might have been 1 or 2 others, but this is the freaking national semifinals. And you're doing it against, a defense that's, it might not be the best in the country, but it's, a top tier defense.
You know what though? They're ranked higher than Alabama by a lot.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
So Alabama, I believe, was like 77, and Clemson was like 22.
Okay.
So I think that makes an interesting segue into how they're going to fare against Alabama.
Yeah.
Right. So, I expect them to score points. It's just going to be, and I think I said this about Clemson too. It's like, you're not going to completely stop Bama. You have to just contain them, and hopefully you get them to punt a few times, or maybe kick a couple field goals when they get in the red zone, or stop the big play. Make them earn what they get. Greg, I know you might have to leave here in a couple minutes, but why don't you give us kind of like your prediction on what you think is going to happen in the game, and maybe like a final score?
Yep. No, I think just really piggybacking off of that. I mean, off of what Brett said and what we all talked about. I mean, it's worth noting, Bam, this is not the vaunted Alabama defense that they've had in the past. They've been gashed for 40 plus points, I think, by Ole Miss and Florida. Obviously their offense is fantastic, but we're going to score points. One of the amazing things about that we did in the Clemson game was how many times did we beat Clemson deep? Right around that same point in the field too. It was right around midfield, usually those second and short deep shots. It just felt like our receivers could run past their secondary whenever they wanted to. And I'm not sure it's going to be that much different against Bama. So I think the deep shots are going to be there. I think, Sermon's rolling right now. The O-line's rolling. So I think he's going to play well. We're going to score a lot of points. And on defense, we got to, hopefully the COVID issues aren't too bad on the D line, and we need to get a pass rush because Brett called this out as well. I mean, we don't have the knock on Mac Jones is he's not a mobile quarterback, but he also doesn't get hit because they do have a strong line. So if we can get a pass rush, pressure him into some tough throws, they'll get theirs. But I'm gonna go. I think it's a very similar game to the Clemson game, and I'm gonna go with 49-38 Buckeyes. I think it's a shootout. I think it's going to be a fun one. Hopefully we get a couple turnovers. But I'm going into this game. I feel like we got the horses to compete. We are right there with these guys. And I think maybe it's just our time. I know, Billy, you mentioned the 2-year thing, and it just got me thinking. Tressel's second year, Urban's second year, Day's second year.
Yep. Something to think about.
Hey, and Greg, one last comment. This is kind of, it's obviously Ohio State related, a little bit change of subject, but I want to make sure I get this answer out of you if you have to leave. Give me your number one Ohio State game that you've ever watched or been a part of.
And I saw what you tweeted out, and that was pretty good. Gosh, it's such I'm going to go nostalgic and say the OSU Miami National Championship is probably my all-time number one.
Okay.
And part of it's just the whole circumstance of like I remember us all together watching it and how much fun that was. But Bama in 14 is like 1B.
Okay.
But there's been so many, and just thinking about it I was coming up with games today where we could do a whole show on great Buckeye games, and I was coming up. There's all kinds of honorable mention games I won't even get into, like going back at like 97 Rose Bowl was probably one of my earlier ones that I remember. But there's been so many great games. But OSU Miami, first title for any of the sports teams that I follow. That was extra special.
All right, very good. All right, Dave, why don't we go to you now? Give us your prediction. Give us your top Buckeye game that you've ever been a part of.
I think it's going to be a game of the ages. I just think you got two heavyweights going at it. Offensively, I think they're both unstoppable offenses. I don't think any defense can stop any of the offenses on the field. But unfortunately for Buckeye Nation, I just think that Devontae Smith and Najee Harris will be a little too much. I think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. My prediction is Bama 45, Ohio State 41. And Bama will have the ball last, and we'll win it. I think with Devontae Smith validating his Heisman Trophy. As for my favorite Ohio State game, there were two of them. One, like Kurtz just said, the Ohio State National Championship where they beat Miami. It was epic just for numerous reasons. Number one, it was on a Saturday night, so you could actually get together, have parties, and I had a bunch of people at the house. But having a Youngstown guy,
Friday night, Dave.
Oh, Friday night, Saturday, whatever. I didn't have to go to work the next
Doesn't matter.
day. That's all
Doesn't matter.
I was able to sleep in. That's the main thing. But to have a Youngstown guy, lead the way for us, and you thought it was over, we lost, and to come back and actually get the ball back and win, I think that was unbelievable. But my second favorite one was when Ohio State beat Oregon, and the reason why was because I was actually there. Compliments of one of my former players, JT Moore. And not the fact that Ohio State won, but had great seats. We were on the 45-yard line, but we were still with Ohio State families. And to actually see the parents and the family members' reaction, us as fans, we get all fanatical and get all out of sorts. But to be sitting amongst family members, parents that, watch their kids grow up, and to see fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers actually bawling their eyes out because their child just won a national championship. To me, that just hit home and was just memorable to me. And that's something that, I'll never forget. And hopefully, Mayan Williams can actually get me there into a national championship somehow or another. But, that to me was just, it was not that great of a game because Ohio State just rolled. But to actually see the reaction at the end of the game was, to me, something that I'll never forget.
Awesome. Very cool. All right, Brett, go ahead.
I'm with Greg and Dave on this one. I think this is going to be high scoring. Unlike Dave, I'm going to Ohio State on this one, but I think it's going to be one in the trenches, and I think Ohio State's defense is just a smidge better, and I think they'll be able to at least slow down at some point something from Alabama, whether hold them to a field goal or at least get them to get them off the field. I'm going to go 49-45. And I do think that maybe Alabama scores late to get it to the 45, but I think it's around there. With the favorite games, Justin, I agreed with your post too. I really want to put the championships above it. Oregon, I just thought we were going to win. I wasn't really too concerned with them. And so Alabama, that Sugar Bowl win against Alabama, I think because it was that hurdle, even though we technically didn't have a win against the SEC, even though we beat Arkansas and everyone knows it, game that was taken away. That was that big SEC hurdle, Alabama hurdle, and I think that's what made that one so good. But Miami, the Miami one though is special just because it was the first one that we were a part of, and we were in school. We were at Ohio State at that point in time, so it just made it all the more special. So yeah.
Very cool. All right, Bill, to you.
All right. So yeah, like all these guys says, and like everybody says, high scoring game for sure. Go 42-35 Buckeyes. I think regarding COVID, if we have a healthy team, I think we could definitely win this game and even single-handedly win the game. Terms of my favorite game, probably going to go 2016 Michigan game, the double overtime. I was at that game. It was my freshman year, so it was really cool. LeBron was in the house, so it was a good freshman year game. So definitely by far my favorite memory.
Okay. All right, very good. Well, Franklin, this is funny you said that because I'm going to show you what I had down. I had 49-45 as well.
That's great.
If you're listening to this podcast and you're a better, you're going to want to take the over.
Right.
Right.
So
I thought this was entertainment purposes only.
yeah, so I think that might be the safest bet to take the over. But I like Ohio State. Just the fact that we're being doubted once again, and when we come out to be underdogs, we generally have the upper hand, or at least we play like we do, or we feel like we do. So I'm going the Buckeyes in a high scoring game. I'm really hoping it's a great game, and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it there. I think regardless, and I'm not gonna go negative here, but regardless if we win or lose, I think Ohio State has a lot to look forward to these next 5-6 years going forward. With the coaching staff, with the incoming players, with the returning players. Obviously, we're going to have a new quarterback next year, and we're going to have to replace some guys, but this team is going to reload again, and we're going to be good. We'll talk about that in the off season and in another podcast. But I like the Buckeyes' chances in this game. Nick Saban, a legend, his daughters. He might have shut her down from tweeting.
She's grounded.
Yeah, she's definitely off the phone for a while.
Well, definitely her account got shut down there for a little bit.
Just ironic that happened at the same time. And as far as games, I tweeted out a list, and this is going to be, I think I'm going to do like a whole podcast. If you guys want to come back for this, we can do this again, revisit this maybe in the preseason for Ohio State. But I listed that 2014 national championship, semifinal against Bama as my number one game, the Miami, and then the Oregon. And then this most recent game against Clemson, I had it 4. I got a bunch of Michigan games in there, some comebacks against Penn State. A game that someone texted me about that I didn't forget about, but I didn't think about putting on the list, was the game that got them to that Alabama game, 59-0 over Wisconsin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That really,
You know what though? I wasn't thinking of this either until like we started talking about it, but the 0-2 Michigan game.
Yeah.
Where the pitch out for the option that they never ran all year, and they scored that touchdown to go ahead.
And Youngstown boy, was that Claret that scored that touchdown?
No, I think that was Maurice Hall. I think.
I
don't think it wasn't Claret. He had been dealing with like stinger, so he was coming off the field pretty frequently that day.
Okay.
But we were in that stadium.
Oh man,
so that was a crazy day.
Awesome weekend. Well, hopefully we got a lot to look forward to this coming weekend. Browns, Steelers, Buckeyes. If you follow those teams, you got a lack of sleep coming this weekend. But enjoy it. Enjoy this team. Thank you guys for joining us. And
thank you.
And we'll touch base soon. So appreciate you all, and go Buckeyes.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
All right, we are back. Thank you to all those guys for joining us on the show. Really appreciate their insight and knowledge. We're looking forward to this Ohio State Alabama national championship. Alabama currently sits as an 8-point favorite, and you heard our scores there. And picks. We'll show you the picks here in a minute for all of the NFL games and for the Ohio State game coming up. I'm going to put Joe on the spot and have him pick against the spread here in a minute too. So again, appreciate those guys. Hopefully hopefully the Browns Steelers breakdown and the Ohio State Alabama breakdown, you're able to take something from that. And I think the keys to victory are very similar in a lot of those games. The Browns and Ohio State, you got to be able to run the ball successfully. You got to be able to convert key third downs. You got to force turnovers, especially the Browns. And I do feel a little bit more confident as an Ohio State fan right now, even with whatever the point spreads are versus the Browns. However, I think the Browns have a very, very legitimate shot of winning that game. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to bring Joe in. I'm going to throw up some picks that we made, that Greg, Dave, and Charlie and I made for the NFL games. And I'm going to have Joe, kind of throw his 2 cents into this too. So, Joe, let's just go game by game real quick. So,
all right, I'm ready. And I'm going with my head, not my heart, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right.
First game on Saturday, we have the Colts at the Bills. The Bills are currently sitting at a 6.5 point favorite.
I'm still go with the Bills on that.
Yeah, I think that's a safe pick. The Bills are trending in the right direction right now. Let's go with the Rams at the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a 3.5 point favorite at home.
Oh man, this is a close, tough one.
This is a tough one. I think it's gonna be low scoring too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it looks like I'm going to just join the herd here. It looks like we did a 75% here, so I'm going with the Seahawks too.
Okay, so Seahawks.
I would punt on that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a real tough game. I think the Seahawks. I want to say they finished at 12-4, but it was not a very impressive 12-4. All right, so next game we have the night game on Saturday. That is going to be Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Washington Football Team. Buccaneers as a road favorite at 8 point favorite. So what do you think? You can break the tie.
I'll go with Tom Brady here.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Good bet. Tom Brady.
This is what he lives for, man.
You know what I heard though? This year they played four night games this year, the Buccaneers. And Tom Brady's he's getting a little older. He's in his early 40s. But he's a very regimented type guy. And I heard he's got a bedtime, that he puts on himself of 8:30. So a lot of these games start at 8 or 8:15, the night games. So
he put in his stocking cap.
They're 1-3 in those games.
Oh
so maybe is that attributed to Tom Brady being up past his bedtime? So you're going with Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. Yep.
So let me write that down here. Okay. Next up, we have, and by the way, Chase Young kind of called out and said, I'm coming after Tom Brady. That's not necessarily something you should call out, but I think this game could be really close. But I also picked Tampa to win and cover. So I could see that being a close game and maybe Tampa.
I've just every time that we have played him, the dude just knows how to win. Even if he's lost his offense, he's lost his linemen, he still finds a way by the end of the game to win. And you
see what happened in New England without him.
Yeah,
too.
right.
All right, next game. I think this could be the best game of the weekend. The Baltimore Ravens, very hot team right now, -3.5. Again, another road team that's a favorite against the Tennessee Titans. That game is the first game on Sunday. So Ravens are a 3.5 point favorite.
Oh, this is another one. I want to say, oh man, I want to say Tennessee.
Okay.
Right. And this is more heart than head, I'm telling you. So we'll go Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And I struggled on this pick. I took Baltimore because they're so hot right now. But, obviously the last couple of years, Lamar Jackson's had these great regular season and struggled in the postseason. He has yet to pick up a win. That's only 2 years. So that should be interesting. Okay. So Joe's going Tennessee. Next one, we have the Bears at and this is something interesting I just saw on the sheet. So the Bears at the Saints. The Saints are a 9.5 point favorite. That's about a 4:45 kickoff. But this game is going to be played on CBS, Nickelodeon, and Amazon Prime. So
Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
What?
So I don't know. I saw that on the thing. I thought that was interesting. So Bears at the Saints.
Chicago's getting 9 points?
Yeah, Chicago's getting 9.5.
All right, I'll take Chicago with 9.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's hard to lay that many points in the playoffs. I took the Saints in that game because I just think the Saints have the best roster in the NFL, but okay.
That's a lot of points to
That's
overcome.
a lot of points. Okay. And then let's go with, our favorite team in our heart here. We got the Browns at the Steelers. The line started at about a 4-point line. I think maybe dropped to 3.5, and now it's up to 6 with the COVID news with Stefanski and by the way, in that game, Mike Prefer, I believe, is going to be the acting head coach in that game. He is this Brown special teams coordinator,
and he's in charge of water distribution, right? He's the one.
His main job. Well, obviously, he's still going to probably run the special teams, but his main job is going to be like, do we kick it? Do we go for it? Do we? When do I call a timeout? Things like that.
So, do you think he was the creative one, or do you think that went through Stefanski?
It's Stefanski for sure. Right. But I think Alex Van Pelt he's still going to call the offensive plays. And, Joe Woods, the defensive coordinator. So the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator are still in their spots. They're still going to do their thing. I think you take the special teams guy if he knows what he's doing and he knows all the components of the team and he can make those decisions where he's not necessarily focused on the offense or the defense. He can kind of be a neutral. So that should be interesting. So in our picks, everybody picked the Steelers to win. I had the Browns covering, and I had the Steelers winning 27-24. I think if the Browns were 100%, I might have that score flipped, but that was our picks. So just all right,
here's my reason. I'm going with the Browns too, but here's my reason. Okay. Aside from the wide receiver, every time that the Browns end up losing a player, they rose and actually played better in that segment of their play. So I have a feeling that they're in the playoffs. They're going to be hyped up because it's the first time. They're going to make a big deal about it, and then they're going to do it for Stefanski. So I'm going with it.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that pick. I think it's a great pick. And the Browns have literally been, I would say, the team that has been hit by this COVID stuff, maybe the hardest and maybe at the worst possible time of the year, but they've been dealing with this throughout the whole year. Garrett's been out for a couple games. Denzel Ward was out. A ton of other players and coaches have been out. But Kevin Stefanski said way back in March that we are going to be the most prepared team to deal with this, and we're not going to make any excuses. We're just going to go out there and do what we do. So I like what you said there, and I think that's good. So one more game. As of now, there have been rumors that the Ohio State Alabama national championship game could be postponed a week, because of COVID protocols and this and that. But as of now, and I believe this game is going to be played as is on Monday night. So if you're a Browns or Steelers fan and a Buckeyes fan, you're going to have a long couple nights, right? Which hopefully, for your team, both your teams in a good way. But you're going to be probably running on a lack of sleep either Monday morning or Tuesday morning. Right. But we have number 1 Alabama versus number 3 Ohio State. Right now, Alabama is an 8-point favorite. And again, there's been speculation about the Ohio State might have a couple of defensive players out with COVID and this and that. But 4 of the 5 of us picked Ohio State to win this game straight up. And my best bet for this game would be, I would say, to take the over. I think the over is somewhere sitting around 75 points, which is insane. Man. But if you listen to some of the scores we projected, 49-45, that's 94 total points. 49-38, that's 87 total points. 45-41, 86 points, and 42-35. That was the lowest of our 5 predictions, and that still landed at 77 points. So I think this game has to be high scoring just based on the two offenses and defenses. But, you know, there's been matchups like that where it totally goes the other way and it flips and turns into a defensive struggle. I don't foresee that happening, but what do you what's your thoughts on
Ohio State? I'm going to take Ohio State.
Okay.
But I think if it's not a 70 plus whatever, then Ohio State can't win. Honestly, I think Alabama's the more, if it gets into a defensive shoving match, then Alabama takes it because they're just a stronger team.
Yes.
But if we're allowed to release the entropy on that field, Ohio State takes it.
All right. Very good. Very good. So, you know, we have there's a ton of sports going on this weekend. And I'm not going to get into what happened yesterday in Washington, D.C. I just want to say it was a very bad black eye for our country. But again, that's why this sports show and what we talk about is a great distraction from real life, because, you know, there's a lot of bad that happened in this world. And hopefully, you know, this kind of stuff, the sports stuff, and whatever team you root for can be entertaining and fun and take you away from the real life stressors that are out there. So, you know, again, I want to thank Greg Kirchner, Dave Spires, Charlie Jennings, who else? Brett Franklin, Bill De Niro, Joe, and everyone that you know always tunes in and listens. And if you can, again, share this with people that you think might be interested. That really helps our show and helps get out good content to you guys. We'll talk more about the Frankie Lindor trade more next week, and we'll get into all that good stuff. So until then, go Browns, go Buckeyes. We will see you next week, and fingers crossed in those games.
This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us.